A new book, The Bunny Years, has recently been published. Tonight we'll meet some of the bunnies who helped make the Playboy Clubs of the 60s and 70s world famous. From 1960 through the mid-80s, make no mistake about it, the Playboy nightclub scene was hopping. And celebrities from Johnny Carson to Bob Hope, even the Beatles partied in Playboy land. But it was the bunnies who stole the show as they served up the drinks and raked in the cash.
The biggest tip I ever got was, I think, $450.
What?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Stories like this and many, many more are all part of a new book by former bunny and actress Kathryn Leigh Scott called The Bunny Years, a behind-the-scenes look into the Playboy Clubs of the past and the women who worked as bunnies, such as singer Deborah Harry and actress Susan Sullivan.
I think all of them felt that it was time that the story was told. And not only what it was like being a bunny then, but what the impact of that job was on the rest of their lives. And for most of them, it was a very positive experience.
We were roommates in the 60s, all right? And we're still very, very close. It was great. We worked together, we lived together, we played together, we went horseback riding, we went motorcycle riding, we went to the Peppermint Lounge at the time, and we had a ball, and we're still very, very close.
So it would be okay to say you guys had a good time in the 60s and 70s.
Absolutely. We used to go 24 hours a day. We would work, we would go out dancing, and then we would go horseback riding early in the morning.
Yeah.
And then come show up for work the next day.
And you can't do that anymore?
No.
To celebrate the release of Bunny Years, over 70 former Playboy bunnies reunited at New York City's Friars Club. Among that group was former bunny and current supermodel Lauren Hutton, who felt her bunny experience motivated her to strive for higher goals.
I think it showed me what I didn't want to do, and that I didn't want to sell drinks in a tiny little costume bathing suit. You know, I was trying to earn enough money to get off to Africa to see the world. And when I quit all that and went back to school and then came back to New York, I found out that modeling, people made a serious amount of money. They were making as much in an hour as I was making in a week.
For many of these women, staying fit during, as well as after their bunny years, has become a way of life. Because back when, being a bunny meant following a strict menu of rules.
I was so used to being weighed in once a month, and having been of Italian derivation, it was very difficult on weekends not to have mama's pasta and whatnot.
Eat.
Exactly. So now I'm very conscious. You become very conscious of your nails, your skin, your weight.
So it becomes a way of life.
It certainly does. And I'm very, very happy, and I thank Hugh for it.
It was very sexy. It was geared towards men. I mean, men were members. Women weren't members.
That's a good point.
You know, and it was, but they had, we had a whole ritual of how we greeted men. Good evening, sir, with the lady like a cocktail. I had to look directly in your eyes and ask if the lady, it was really kind of condescending.
Although absent from this reunion, Hugh Hefner was on the minds of most former bunnies in attendance. Besides leading their sexual revolution, according to Delilah Henry, who has appeared on the cover of Playboy 4 times and has over 100 appearances in the magazine, Hef was also a good man to work for.
Wonderful man. He stood up for I stood up for women's rights before Gloria Steinem. And whenever something was going wrong in the club with one of the girls, I would go directly to Hefner. I would go right over the heads of the managers. And he really understood. He always listened. If he was ever wrong, which he was wrong once or twice, or we got in an argument, he'd come back and apologize to me. And I mean, that's a terrific man.
Another celebrity in attendance was the man who, over the years, captured a good portion of Playboy's history on canvas, world-renowned artist LeRoy Neiman.
I do the whole thing from the first year, and I still do things with the magazine. So, you know, it's part of my contribution to our culture.
If I remember correctly, you were at quite a few of the parties. Is that right? Back in Hef's day?
In the Chicago mansion, yes. LA mansion, all the way. Yeah. Did you hit those parties as well?
I was too young. No, I'm kidding. What was that time like?
It was when you're young, it's a first. Now, if it came about today, I don't know. You know, it wouldn't be a first anymore. But everything that's a first to us is the thing that we identify with and remember the strongest. And we compare everything to it as a touchstone.
Can we compare anything to those days?
Not in my life today.
On hand to promote the release of Bunny Years and to remind everyone that the symbol of the Playboy Bunny is alive and well were 1996 Playmate of the Year Stacy Sanchez and Miss May 1994 Shae Marks.
I think they did something no one else had done. He brought something new to a generation that wasn't previous there. It kind of was the symbol for what was going on, what was underlying anyway, and he just brought that to light. So as time goes on, everything changes. It's like we had disco, and all of a sudden, well, you had the bunny clubs. Now we have the Playmates, and which were there all along. But there was one symbol. Now there's another. So it's just a changing time.
Okay. If you had one message that you were trying to get out with this book, what would that be?
Oh, that Playboy bunnies were very self-motivated, very ambitious young women who went on to terrific jobs. I mean, this was a launching pad. That's what the Playboy Club was for all of us.
When the last of the Playboy Clubs closed its doors back in the late 80s, it left behind a remarkable 25-year history. Tonight, after meeting with a group of former bunnies, it's obvious as to why these clubs were oh so very popular. For a special edition, I'm Mickey Burns.
Hi, I'm Kristen Johnston. Stay tuned, Staten Island Special Edition. We'll be right back.